Legacy Wave 1 in under 60 minutes. Let's go. Yeah, okay, so that poll was absolutely fucking decimated between this and Siege. Everyone decided to vote the Legacy one should be done. So I decided, okay, let's give the people what they want for once in their life. So, yeah, if you've seen the Studio Series videos, which I'm sure you probably have if you're here, yeah, let's get straight into it with Legacy G1 Iguanas in over 60 seconds. Let's go. These fucking pretenders. I don't know what to say about these. I really like them for what they are because they're just absurd in the best possible ways. So initially my opinion towards these was they're fun figures, but oh my god, they suck as Transformers. When talking about bomb bursts somewhere, someone made the point of they are pretenders, so instead of it being they hide in a shell, it's now they get various vehicle parts and slap them onto them and they're trying to look like a vehicle. I don't know if that's actually the philosophy the designers took to approaching the pretenders, but me, it works and I love it all the more. Coming back to this, yeah, with that in mind, it explains a lot of the sort of janky problems with this vehicle mode. Yeah, the vehicle mode's nice. It's a Tron-esque bike. It's like a Tron bike if it was made by H.R. Geiger, you know. H.R. Geiger's Tron. Now, there's a movie I'd love to see. But that's not what it's about. What it's about is the transformation, which is relatively straightforward. Given this guy's a core class, I would say it accomplishes what it needs to fairly straightforward. And before you know it, we've only gone and got ourselves Iguanas in his robot mode. Like, holy shit. What does that say about him in his robot mode? His head's funny looking because they did the Revenge of the Fallen Bludgeon thing where it's like the pretender shell is the robot. He looks pretty good. His posability is very nice. Yeah, he doesn't have all the bells and whistles you'd expect, but he can strike a pose well enough. The only thing I really don't like about this guy is the weapon he comes with, because this is part of some dog gimmick where it was like, oh yeah, we combine all these pieces together to form some dog sword. I can live without it. I prefer to think of him as just sort of a bare knuckle bruiser anyway, who just goes around punching people. He's scrappy. I think he's a very good figure. And more importantly, he's kind of the first pretender figure since that Revenge of the Fallen Bludgeon, at least at the main line, that I can think of. This guy was the first of a couple that are to come, especially as we go through Legacy United as well. And hopefully, at the time of this recording, Legacy... Nope, I meant Legacy Evolution. Shit. It don't matter. F it. Let's just get on with it. Legacy Prime Arcee in over 60 seconds, let's go. This thing is like a bad girlfriend in the sense that she's a bike. In the sense that I've already got rid of her once because I thought, well, these Prime figures, nothing seems to be happening with them. I'm not really that bothered. Let's get rid of them. And lo and behold, they announced like a breakdown and a cliff jumper and all this sort of shit was happening. I was like, okay, maybe I ought to get her back. I suppose we probably ought to start with the motorbike mode. So I'll be honest, this motorbike mode isn't that bad. It's very chibi, rounded, all that sort of shit. Compared to the actual bike in the show, it's not a 1-for-1 scale. It was never going to be, but it's not as effective as Knockout. I don't know. It looks okay, just very rounded and not particularly the same sort of aesthetic. That's the word I'm looking for. Paint applications are nice. The colour applications throughout are nice. The weapon storage is shit, but you know, you can't have it all. Has a kickstand, has some big old f***ing bug eyes on the front, has some paint that runs along the front of the bike, and it seems to have bubbled up on this side, which I don't really quite understand. The bike mode isn't where the complaints with this figure lie, so let's get to where they do. I don't know if people complain about the transformation for this Arcee. I don't know if you could make the complaint of a lack of creativity or a lack of atmosphere, because it just feels very by the numbers, very sort of derivative. There's nothing special going on to make it sort of stand out compared to any other motorbikes. But now we've got the robot mode, and this is where all the issues came from. This is where everyone started kicking off too far. And I suppose I kind of see why. The posability is not particularly bad by any modern standard, but it's also not particularly good. The feet are posed at a default angle, so you can't tilt that other than 45 degrees inward, and that's it. I'm not suggesting that they need to have fully posable feet in every angle, but for a character who's meant to be this agile, yeah, I find due to the transformation that the knee joint isn't as effective as, you know, unhinging the entire shin. The wheels on the side of the legs are very sort of prominent. There's not really much you can do about them. I don't know if it's deliberate, but the backpack just comes off and just leaves this big exposed thing. The wheel becomes some sort of accessory, but I can't for the life of me tell you what that accessory is supposed to be. She's got forearm blades, which are part of the ongoing gimmick of the wave, which, to be fair to them, you can get some options out of. I'm not going to say they're the best options, but you get some options out of. Also, on this copy, my original one didn't do this, but if you swivel the arm too much, it just slides right off the mushroom peg, so that's always cool. Take a look elsewhere on the figure. The head is very nice, and I would say, oh, it looks just like the show, except it doesn't, because this Arcee has a nose. That's something I always forgot about, and then I saw people complaining about online. You can definitely tell this is supposed to be a G1ified Prime Arcee, and people kicked off about it, and I don't know if I agree with them or if it's a case of cope. I think now we've seen what the animated stuff looks like, I kind of agree with him. Like, I don't hate this thing. No, that's a lie. I have issues with this thing because of various reasons to the point I got rid of it. My life. I think this Arcee was not the best foot to put forward, especially with regards to this video where it's the second one and it's probably the one of the worst figures to come out of this wave in terms of design. It manages alright, but this is the trouble because it's legacy and it's meant to be this character from this beloved part of the franchise. For some reason, 15 years ago, everyone's thinking, well, it's that character, and then you get it in hand and it's fucking not. Does it get a free pass? Does it fuck? But I don't make the rules. Fuck it. Let's continue with Legacy G1 drag strip in over 60 seconds, let's go. It's so weird that the second time in a row where they've done Menasor and drag strips just in a wave on his own. Anyway, coming back to combiners for the first time in mainline since what, 2018? And even then, coming back to the Stunticons for the first time in nearly 7 years at this point. Drag strip. And as opposed to that previous one, which was the sort of... I'm really shit with cars, but he was this kind of race car, whereas the Legacy one is this kind of race car. And that's how he actually looked in the cartoon. So, really, no major issues. Just, I don't like the mushroom peg wheels, which I've complained about before. And paint apps, while nice, are just not present enough. But, you know, it's a straightforward car. It rolls well. It's fun. It's kind of got that weird Matchbox Hot Wheels aesthetic. I don't know. I can't really complain too much. And if I decide I want to try and complain too much, just tell me to shut up. Usually all it takes. And carrying on that sort of Combiner Wars aesthetic, a very simple, straightforward transformation for the most part. You got a couple of little extra steps here and there, but it's not really ones that add much in the way of difficulty. It's just ones that more add in the way of something to f***ing do, I guess. You know, but it leads to a good robot mode in the end, which is the main thing. Looking back on the Combiner Wars drag strip, which I know I shouldn't be comparing to because A, I don't still own it, and B, you can't compare it, but I just think about that one, and then I think about how there was a repaint of this guy from Classics Mirage, and this guy definitely feels up there with the Classics Mirage version. Like, he's very posable. And he's very good at being posable. Like, there's a couple of fucking issues that I could raise with this guy. It's mainly in the way of paint applications and lack thereof. Maybe say detailing. I don't know. Like, if I was going looking for something to complain about, yeah, I could easily find it. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the first time they've come back to a combiner in years. And this time they've come with a different approach. And I like it. You know, he's posable compared to his predecessors. You know, this one's even got... Well, okay, he doesn't have wrist articulation. But, you know, he's got waist articulation. He's got ankle tilts in multiple directions. You know, this guy does a lot right for what he is. It's more the paint applications, or the paint budget, should I say, is what ends up letting him down. There's also the fact that he's got a hollow head, but, you know, that's whatever. Find me someone that doesn't these days. Accessory-wise, he comes with these two little guns. I like him. I like him. As far as the Stunticons go, this was sorely overdue, and it just it's a good way to build excitement for what's to come, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. You want to know more? Tune in for the video after this. That was going to be a real combined effort. That wasn't funny, and I don't care. Speaking of which, who's after this one? Legacy G1 Kickback in over 60 seconds, let's go. Alright, for anyone who's been around for a little while, you'll know I've done this guy a couple of times. That came out wrong, but let's roll with it. And in doing so, I've ended up transforming him wrong those couple of times. And I'd like to think this is the first time where I've actually got it correct. So I'm going to roll in good faith that he's correct this time, and if he isn't, shut up, basically. So as we can see here, Kickback is some sort of grasshopper cricket. I assume it's a grasshopper, but I didn't want to discriminate, you know, I don't want to go causing arguments amongst the incest community. You know what you heard. Yeah, this is one of those alt modes where it's not very clearly defined. There's nothing really tabbed together. There's nothing really deliberate, it feels. It probably is. No, that's a lie. It definitely is deliberate, but it just doesn't feel it. It's one of the things that puts me off the G1 Beast aesthetic, because they never look good. And I know it's part of the appeal and it's part of the logic and all that sort of stuff, but I just see it and I'm like, it's not the one for me. No thank you. I'll take a firm pass on that one. Anyway, talking about some of these other things. One of the things I do enjoy about this is that it covers up the face, which the first time I transformed this guy, I never realised. He also comes with wings, weapon storage. He's got these blades that go together, at least I think they're supposed to be blades. They kind of just tab together and plug up his arse, and it forms a pseudo-thorax. Kickback as an Insecticon, it's a whole aesthetic that on a personal I am just not the biggest lover of. And his transformation, as you can imagine, is just tuck away all the extremities and stand him up. It's just like tidying him up, basically. It's like finding a tramp in the street and saying, guess what, you're going for a job interview now, and chucking him in a suit that you've just stole off a body that you've just dug up. I need to stop with these descriptors. I'm going too far, I think, in a few places. But none of that matters now, because now we've got Kickback into his robot mode, and it's a G1 Insecticon. He's a good blend of yellows, purples, black. He's got all the stock standard articulation you'd expect. Accessory wise, he comes with the two big thorax pieces that are called clubs, which honestly when you see him carrying them around, yeah, it kind of has that vibe more so than a sword or a blade. By far the best accessory is this Tommy gun, which it annoys me because none of the other Insecticons come with a gun as good as this. When I ended up buying that set that contained Ransack, and he also came with the gun, I was happy. I was really happy. Originally when I first got him, I thought he was really underwhelming because I didn't think he did much, and then as I've gradually learned the error of my ways, quite f***ing literally, I like him. He's not shrapnel, but he's good. I like him for what he is. He's fun. He's good. I don't know if he goes for anything cheap now, but I recommend getting some version of this mold because it's not that bad. Let's talk about something that probably is actually fairly disappointing. Legacy G1 skids in over 60 seconds, let's go. This is probably the hardest one in this wave to talk about, because whereas other ones are varying degrees of sound, good, questionable, this one's just boring. He's dull and inoffensive. He transforms into this little car-looking thing. The paint apps are fine. It doesn't hold together the best. There's a whole thing about most of it being clear plastic. I have nothing to say to this. Skids is just boring and bland, and I think it's important that we kind of struggle our way through the transformation into the equally bland and boring robot mode so we could talk about that. Now time to talk about Skids. So, one thing I do want to raise about Skids that really concerns me just looking at this. His hands, the mushroom pegs, are stressed to Now, around the time of this, there was a lot of QC issues that they kind of... I'd like to think they've kind of ironed them out in the recent couple of years. There's no promise of that, but, you know, I get the impression that whatever releases are coming out now are definitely doing a better job than these ones when they first had to sort of drop onto the f***ing market. Like a f***ing time traveler just ejected out the other end of the portal. Articulation-wise, he's got all the standard stuff you'd expect. His shoulders are a bit... but they do the job. Weapons wise, he's got this wrist mounted thing that you can't put in too deep or it gets stuck and then you have to cut it. He comes with this sort of blaster thing that's just too big, so it ends up looking awkward coming out of his hand. And I forgot to mention this, he also comes with this Energon axe doohickey thingamajoo. In the same vein with Kickback and Arcee, this is meant to be part of a running line that I think they only did with this wave. I could be wrong about that. And in this wave, it was meant to be, oh yes, this is the running thing. And they just kind of forgot about it and never did anything with it again. And I just find it really funny. But it's also quite tragic because they used it to sabotage themselves when we get to the Voyagers. Don't worry, I'll let you know when we get there. And these weapons are just not particularly good. So, yeah, Skids. I don't even know if he's a bad toy. I just know he's boring as all f***. There's more interesting figures in this f***ing wave alone. There's more interesting things in the world than Legacy Skids. Like, this is the thing. This guy's been repainted 5-6 times. I own 3 of them, and I have 1 on pre-order. And every single one of them does the job better. I don't know. There's only so many times I can say that Skids is unappealing and uninteresting. And you know what? Sometimes you get ones that are like that. Legacy Blaster in over 60 seconds, let's go. So I originally was not going to be discussing Blaster. I kind of thought about it and thought, well, this was the one I got because the Kingdom one just didn't appear. Blaster is obviously based on the G1 Blaster, so he's the boombox, and he uses some of that superior engineering that I think they took away from the Netflix Soundwave. He's got what you expect him to in this mode. He's also got weapon storage on his back, which, I'll be honest, I did not know existed, because before I always thought he just plugged into the back like that, like an antenna. Go figure. Also, because he's a boombox, he has this big grey button, which you push it in, it opens up the chest, and we get our accessory. I mean, we're talking about Blaster, so I guess let's talk about Eject for a split second. And I say split second appropriately enough because he's made entirely of clear plastic. Get ready for this thing to f***ing split. I don't know if there is any actual reported breakages. Like, I know people have speculated on it, but I don't know if there has actually been any confirmed ones. But just to err on the side of caution, I leave him in the chest. He doesn't come out. Unfortunately, you transform him into his robot mode. He's definitely the middle child of the cassette mold, because you got the original cassette mold from Siege, you got this one from Kingdom/Legacy, and then you've got the new one in SS86. It's just a shame they decided to make him out of a very vulnerable material that's just going to disintegrate. But it's fine. In Joe Hasbro we trust and all that sort of shit. Cue in the British memes. But yeah, so for that reason, he stays in the chest because I don't want to run the risk of breaking him. So I think one of the ways to address Blaster's transformation is like this. It's very straightforward. It's exactly what you expect it to be. But there is a couple of nice little details, particularly this shin detailing that flips around depending on what mode you've got him in. So you've got a bit of options for how you want him to look. But anyway, now we've got him into his robot mode. He's Blaster. He's exactly what you expect, especially if you've handled the Netflix Soundwave. Now, admittedly, I quite like the way this has turned out. I think there's a lot of people who genuinely aren't that keen on this guy. I could be wrong. And personally, I like him. I like his rifle. I like the fact that he's got the sculpted pointed finger, and he kind of pulls off that gimmick better than Soundwave does in the sense of it's easier for him to tab his gut. He's posable enough, his detailing is nice, he's very non-controversial. As best as I can tell, there's actually no changes because I think he came out for both around the same time, like the last wave of Kingdom and the first wave of Legacy. But I know the Kingdom one was a bit difficult to find, whereas the Legacy one was really easy. I think people... I'm trying to remember, it doesn't really matter. I like this for what it is. He's as G1 as it gets, but he's not boring or uninspired about it. He's just a faithful adaptation. There's nothing to not like about him, if that makes sense. Legacy Prime Bulkhead in over 60 seconds, let's go. This vehicle mode raises a lot of questions. So I don't hate this vehicle mode. It also doesn't really look like Bulkhead. I don't know what Bulkhead this is supposed to be. It says Prime. And I've seen people say, oh no, it's more like animated. It doesn't even look like animated. It looks like live action Hound. But I can't work out if that was deliberate or I can't work out what they were trying to do with this mold. It's a Bulkhead, it's fine. It's a G1 Bulkhead. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. I don't really mind it. I kind of like it for what it is. But it's the fact they slapped the Prime Universe sticker on it. I mean, between this and the Arcee, the Prime fans just got the hump right away. I don't really blame him, but I do think they kind of got it better as time went on. Looking around, he's some sort of military vehicle. He's got a tarp on the back that you can remove, and it's all pegged in really nicely, and it reveals a truck bed with accessory storage hidden away from the public view. Solid vehicle, I like it. Worth noting, this tarp on the back has mini-com ports, and I find it interesting that the one example of a figure using mini-com ports in Legacy is the guy who's meant to be from Prime. Of course, the upside about this guy is his transformation is very straightforward, very... Bulkhead has a fairly streamlined transformation when he wants to. It's nothing spectacular though. It's very straightforward sort of engineering. And then yeah, it's still in robot mode. It just begs so many questions. What is actually the deal with him? Why does he look this way? Like, he's got the wheels on the shoulders. None of the Bulkheads ever had that as far as I mean, I don't know about the Energon one. The f***ing helicopter. Mind you, I'm sure there was a rumour at one point this was meant to be a precursor for a Beast Hunter's Optimus Prime, and that so far hasn't happened. His posability is fairly good. He gets quite a good range. Admittedly, his chest looks disproportionately big just because you don't do anything with it. Big blocky boy with all the posability you'd expect of him, just with a gigantic centre frame. Of course, this tarp becomes some sort of shield, like a riot shield, with the added bonus of viewport. So that's always good. Can't beat that. I must admit, I'm a sucker for functioning shields and transformers, especially because this one comes with a melee weapon in the form of Bulkhead's famous mace. That's right, and he goes around and he just people on the head with his mace, apparently. Automatic gun, which can also be handheld, and yeah, as you can see, the gun's also part of that gimmick. I mean, it's solid. I don't think it's the best foot forward to show off, hey, here's the new line, you know, introduce a new design for a Legacy character, no pun intended, and then say that he's meant to be the Legacy character. But he does the job as a Bulkhead. I think he's quite nice. His colours are okay. Accessories, can't complain. The gun's maybe a bit small. The head's very nice. Is Bulkhead a problem? I guess. Is he not a problem? I also guess. F*** it. Let's just talk about Legacy Galvatron in over 60 seconds, let's go. Okay, so originally as well, I kind of briefly touched on this, same with Blaster, because I'm like, well, it's technically a Kingdom release, but this one's a little bit different. But I thought I don't own the Kingdom one anymore, so what's the f***ing point? Galvatron is a very faithful recreation of that weird as f*** turret thing that he turned into in G1. Like, to this day, I still don't really understand what this is supposed to be. I've got a broad idea, but I don't know if it's meant to be anything in particular. As you can see here, he's got various accessories, storage points around the tip of the barrel, which is a bit shit. We'll get these out of the way because they don't look good. Galvatron's alt mode. It's Galvatron's alt mode. Is it a tank? Is it a turret? Is it just stuff and shit and things? I don't really know. But hey, at least it rolls. It looks nice that way when it's rolling around. Also, isn't it weird that Galvatron's the only one of the Unicron Heralds to not have a flying alt mode? But it's fine. As I said, in Joe Hasbro we trust. In Joe Hasbro we trust. I will say this transformation is reasonably straightforward. Like, there's a little bit of contention for me around the chest. I think it's very tight and narrow, but I don't hate it. Once you get the hang of it, it's straightforward. The rest of him just sort of falls into place and is easy to work with. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so the Kingdom one had battle damage around the chest. He also had shoulders. So when they decided to reissue him for Legacy, they said, right, let's get rid of the battle damage, because no one else has had that since Siege. And they also said, let's fix the shoulders. So originally the shoulders kind of sat at this height if you wanted them to face the correct way. And while people kind of just made a bit of like, okay, we can deal with it. As soon as this came around, I was like, nah, I'm getting rid of him. It. I'm not wasting my time with it. Bollocks to him. Admittedly, I do think there's a difference in paint applications on the barrel, but it is what it is. Also, with this barrel, you've got options. You can either have it up on the upper bicep, so, you know, it hangs down like a Seeker rifle, or you can have it on the forearm, so it's like Megatron's fusion cannon. Wow, options. Of course, it's worth mentioning with Galvatron, he come with these extra accessories in the form of a matrix on a chain, because the end of the movie, and these two rifles, because, look, he had a ship in the movie. Cool that they included him, you know, it's always a nice bonus to get extra shit. But there's a point where you kind of just think, why? This Galvatron, I genuinely think, is probably one of the best Galvatron figures we're ever going to get. He's big, imposing, hefty, articulated, detailed, sculpted well. He's just good. He's not the best figure in the world, don't get me wrong. We were spoilt with this Galvatron. He's better than Scourge. He's not as good as Cyclonus, but he looks good with Cyclonus. And you also have to consider the last two Galvatrons we had before this were this one, which later became Peak, but that's not the point, and this one. So yeah, say it with me now. This Galvatron is pretty good. And it's weird to think that we've had a better Galvatron out of the Kingdom Legacy verse than we have had a Megatron yet. What a strange, magnificent world. SS86 Megatron when? Legacy G2 Laser Optimus Prime in over 60 seconds. Let's go. Okay, here we go. The first Optimus Prime of the reboot. And they kind of decided to just go straight for the jugular with obscurity. For those of you who don't know, this was the Laser Optimus Prime, which was one of the many bodies he took in the later years of G1, G2. I want to say this was the first long-nosed cab he ever was, but I don't think that's correct. He was very much a pre-movie kind of Optimus. And when I say pre-movie, I mean 07. A long-nosed truck with red flames. I'm telling you, you've seen it all before. The truck mode in this is very nice. The back of the truck is resculpted from the Earthrise one, just with some new detailing. But the front is all new, all completely new. And he also comes with a new trailer. And instead of it being the big old f***ing box, this one's actually like a tanker trailer. Also, it opens out. Except this doesn't open out like the other girls. Yeah, so you open it out and you get this platform. It's meant to be following the whole routine of, oh, well, it's a trailer, so that means it must form a base or some sort of weapons platform. And there's a point where you kind of have to ask yourself, is it really worth continuing to do it? It's like when they said, oh, we couldn't make Tidal Wave not be a parts former, so we made him a base mode. Bro, who the f*** uses these base modes? He's got this big old accessory in the middle, which is a thing that exists. Also, this little turret at the top detaches to become a handheld weapon. So hey, that's pretty peak. That's certainly skibbity riz, my guys. Please just f***ing hang me, I've had enough. We're getting back to the main attraction in the form of this Optimus. I always wondered when we were going to see a new Laser Optimus Prime, because the last one we saw was in 2011 and it was a deluxe, and it was okay, but it was a deluxe. Whereas this one is, you know, as I say, it's a resculpt of certain parts of Earthrise, and it's got a couple of different ideas going on for it. Plus it comes with the trailer. Now granted, it doesn't have a decal of Optimus burning down a f***ing forest. For better or for worse, I'll let you choose. Cool, let's talk about things about this robot mode that I actually really like. Coming around to the front, he's got these big old fucking tower shoulders, but they don't articulate in the way you'd expect, but the arms do move freely independent of them. Also, these industrial explosive shoulder pads come with rockets inside them. Jiminy Jillikers, Batman, that's f***ing incredible, said Robin menacingly. You look further down, we've now got a new head sculpt, which I assume this is some sort of Japanese inspired one. I think they were privy to the big wider heads with more antennas than what the American designers were, but I could be wrong, and I probably am. Also, he comes with a matrix because you, I guess. And yeah, the exact same legs, just with some new sculpted details. Some arms that aren't nearly as impressive. The fingers are no longer articulated on this Leader Optimus. And his weapons are a clear blue sword, and I think it's supposed to be an axe, but I tend to use it as a shield because it seems to have better functionality that way. I don't know if this would win many over. I think it's kind of considered one of the weaker Optimus Primes we've had in the past few years. He's alright. He does exactly what I expect him to as someone who's never had the privilege of owning a Laser Prime. It's a good good base mold. We've gotten some really good repaints out of that, which I'll talk about them when we get to them in their own respective video. He's never going to be the best one, but he strikes me as one of them where he's a bit of a deep cut and he'll be someone's favourite, and I totally get it. All in all, this wave wasn't the strongest start we could have possibly had. There's some good figures in here. There's a couple of personal favourite figures in here. There's some that have grown on me, and then there's just some that I don't understand why you would lead with that. I'm guessing it was just they weren't sure where they were going at first, and that's why some of these turned out the way they did. But it's also, it confuses the waters because it's like we're going into a mixed generations style of thing, and everything just looks G1, especially when you've got, in the case of Bulkhead, a Prime character who looks more like a G1 original design. I don't know. This is the first in a series of 7 videos, and the next part's going to be Legacy Menasor / Motormaster, and some discussion about combiners in generations. All I know is I'm looking forward to talking about Menasor. I'm looking forward to talking about the rest of this line as it goes. Have a good one. Thank you very much. Goodbye.